Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our NBA top plays for Friday, January 8th over on DraftKings. There's 5 guys that we're going to be talking about today, so let's call up the slideshow and get into why we like each one of them. The 5 guys we have on our list are Zaza Pachulia at $6,000, Mario Chalmers at $4,600, TJ Warren at $4,900, Brooke Lopez at $7,900, and Michael Carter-Williams at $7K. First guy we're going to talk about is Zaza. He faces a Milwaukee team that has been paced up lately, so they're playing a lot faster and seeing scores that they're getting and their opponents getting are a little bit higher than normal. They only set out the last game. Zaza only set out the last game for rest after the 2 overtime thrower that they had, and it was the tail end of a back-to-back. So the fact that he's listed as hurt or questionable or out, that was for the last game. There's nothing serious. There's nothing wrong with him. He's going to be fine. He's going to be playing his normal minutes here. He's gone 6x in 6 straight games. He's been averaging literally right around 35 fantasy points, almost like clockwork every game. So not only is he consistent, but he's also giving you upside because at only 6K, that's a good high side return. There's a high total in this game at 202, and he's going to be matched up against Greg Monroe, who really plays no defense. So we think that Zaza is safe for 10 or 12 points and 8 or 12 boards. Altogether should get somewhere between 33 and 36 fantasy points, just like he's been doing basically every game lately. At 6K, that's really good value for cash and even gives you the upside in the GPP if you need to come down and save salary somewhere. The next guy we're going to talk about is Mario Chalmers. He's going up against Denver in a high total game. With no Connolly, that means a big bump in minutes for him. He played 38 minutes in their last game when Connolly was out. He absolutely exploded for 50 fantasy points in that game as well. You're probably more likely to see 30 minutes and 25 to 30 fantasy points out of him here. But at 4,600, that's still 5 to 6x value pretty easily. If we get no Conley again tonight, I definitely think I'm going to have a lot of Mario Chalmers in my cash and tournament lineups. The next guy I want to talk about is Brooke Lopez at 7,900. He faces an Orlando defense that is really bad against post players. He had 60 fantasy points against them just last week, so we've already seen him do it, and we've seen him do it recently where he's gone for a big game against them. His minutes, his points, his usage, and his field goal attempts are all up since the Jarrett Jack injury. He puts up about 45 to 60 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, which is 5.5 to 7.5 times value. At 7,900, I think he's another really solid play that you can put in there and expect some pretty good upside and a really good game out of Brooke Lopez today. Next guy we're going to talk about, another cheaper option, TJ Warren at the small forward position. It's not an ideal matchup against Miami. Miami's a good defensive team that plays slow, but they do struggle a little bit against wing players. Shooting guards and small forwards have been the way to kind of go after them. He's seen about 35 minutes recently as the starter now that he's taken over for PJ Tucker, and he's averaged about 28 fantasy points when he does see 30 or more minutes. He flashed a ceiling of 50 fantasy points last week versus OKC, so I do think he's a guy that you can put into your tournament rosters because he does have that upside. I'm not sure he reaches anywhere near that 50-point mark today, but again, the fact that he is able to do it, there aren't many guys you're going to find at 5,000 or less that do have that kind of upside, even if it is one of their better games that it'll take for them to hit that ceiling. The last guy I want to talk about is Michael Carter-Williams at $7,000. He's in a high total game against Dallas at 202. Dallas has been weak defending point guards all year so far. MCW is getting more minutes since Jason Kidd went out for his surgery, and he's gone 6x or better in 7 of the last 12 and 5x or better in 10 of the last 12. He's seeing 30 to 35 minutes per game now and scoring 35 to 45 fantasy points per game in those minutes. You get your points, you get your steals, get you a couple rebounds. He comes up with a couple of defensive stuff, a steal here and a block there. So he can fill up a stat sheet across the board. And at only 7K for a guy who's been returning 35 to 45 fantasy points for you, you're getting really good upside and really good safety out of MCW today. So he's one of my favorite point guard options that I'm going to be rolling out there. So there's 5 solid guys for you that you can look at to start building your lineups tonight. Remember, with the NBA, you always got to be vigilant about who's going to be out and who's going to be rested and who's going to be playing, because it really does change a lot of things out there for you. So thank you for joining us here over at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.